The radio comedy transition era. Sitcoms didn't begin on television. They began inside living rooms where families gathered around glowing radios, listening to comedians who built entire worlds with nothing but their voices. Shows like the Jack Benny Program and Ozzie and Harriet weren't just audio entertainment. They were prototype sitcoms. Characters had weekly arcs, running jokes connected episodes. Entire storylines were built around misunderstandings, timing, and personality-driven comedy. When television arrived, these radio stars were the first to take over the screen. They didn't change their style. They simply added faces to the voices people already loved. And because radio comedy was built on rhythm, early sitcoms inherited that rhythm intact. This is why early TV comedies feel theatrical. Static sets, punchline delivery facing the audience, and actors performing like they're on stage. America wasn't looking for innovation yet. It was recovering from war, craving stability. Sitcoms gave them the comfort of routine, and radio comedians gave TV the first ever template, a 30-minute world where everything resets and laughter is guaranteed. The multicam revolution. Then, one woman stepped in and changed the entire medium. Lucille Ball. I Love Lucy wasn't just a hit, it was the invention of the modern sitcom. Lucy refused to shoot on a cheap set. She demanded high-quality film, multiple cameras, and a live audience. Every executive told her it would fail. Within months, the show became the biggest phenomenon in the country. The multicam system she forced into existence did three things. 1. It made comedy feel alive. Actors could perform like theater stars. Audiences laughed in real time. Energy was contagious. 2. It created perfect editing. 3 angles at once meant every joke could land visually. 3. It built a new industry. Studios literally redesigned their buildings around Lucy's blueprint. CBS became a sitcom factory. Shows like The Honeymooners and Our Miss Brooks copied the formula and unintentionally cemented it as the sitcom default for half a century. What looks simple today was revolutionary in the 1950s. Multicam wasn't a technique. It was the engine of American comedy. The idealized family era. As television grew into a household necessity, sitcoms transformed into something else entirely. Fantasy versions of American family life. Shows like The Dick Van Dyke Show, Bewitched, Leave It to Beaver, and The Andy Griffith Show created polished, spotless versions of marriage, parenthood, and suburban living. Real America was turbulent. Civil rights protests, political assassinations, generational conflict, but sitcoms became the country's escape. A half hour where the world looked perfect. Every family had a wise father who always knew the answer, a loving mother who never aged or complained, children with small, fixable problems, homes where no real struggle was allowed inside. Even magical shows like Bewitched and I Dream of Jeannie used fantasy not to challenge norms, but to reinforce them. Magic was controlled. Chaos was temporary. Every episode ended safely. It wasn't realism. It was wishful thinking captured on film. Networks learned one major lesson. Americans didn't want to see their real lives reflected. They wanted to see the lives they wished they had. And for a decade, sitcoms became America's collective daydream. The social and political revolution era. The 1960s gave America perfect families on screen. The 1970s ripped that illusion apart. Suddenly, sitcoms looked nothing like they had before. They were messy, loud, unfiltered, and painfully real. The world was changing, and television finally stopped pretending it wasn't. All in the Family kicked the door open first. A bigoted, stubborn, working-class dad arguing with his liberal son-in-law wasn't comfort TV. It was America's dinner table on fire. Racist jokes, women's rights, war, politics, topics networks once banned were suddenly front and center. Norman Lear turned sitcoms into weapons disguised as comedy. Shows like Good Times, Maude, Sanford and Son, and The Jeffersons tackled poverty, abortion, racism, and systemic inequality. This wasn't fantasy. This was truth, delivered with punchlines sharp enough to make people laugh and think at the same time. For the first time, sitcoms weren't mirrors of ideal life. They were mirrors of real life. Audiences didn't escape into sitcoms. They confronted the world through them. The 1970s didn't just change sitcoms. It changed what television was allowed to say. The materialistic escapism era. After a decade of politics, America wanted to feel good again, and the 1980s delivered that with sitcoms full of warmth, stability, and glossy optimism. Families were back, but this time, they were modernized. humanized. The Cosby Show, Family Ties, and Growing Pains didn't pretend the world was perfect. They just focused on families who loved each other enough to get through anything. But the real shift was tone. The 70s poked society. The 80s embraced it. Consumerism became part of the charm. Characters lived in bigger houses, wore better clothes, and spoke with emotional intelligence instead of anger. Problems were solved with hugs, moral lessons, and soft piano music. Even workplace sitcoms like Cheers and Night Court were optimistic. Chaos happened, but love and friendship always pulled things back together. The 1980s sitcom era wasn't about avoiding reality. It was about offering balance. You can deal with the world, but you still deserve joy. This decade made sitcoms not just entertainment, but therapy. The hangout sitcom golden age. Then came the age that defined nostalgia. The era of sitcoms about we're friends, not families. The 1990s didn't want perfect homes. They wanted relatable relationships. The hangout sitcom was born, and it took over pop culture like nothing before. Friends made the coffee shop your living room. Seinfeld made nothingness hilarious. Frasier turned intellectual banter into punchline art. Everybody Loves Raymond, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and Home Improvement brought warm comedy straight into modern family life. What made the 90s era unstoppable was identity. Characters weren't just jokes. They were people you knew. The sarcastic friend, the neurotic genius, the lazy roommate, the struggling romantic, the chaotic wild card. The 90s sitcom didn't need spectacle. It needed chemistry. It needed dynamics. It needed characters who felt real enough that audiences wanted to spend every Thursday night with them. This wasn't escapism or politics. It was comfort viewing at its peak. Friendships became the new family. Relationships replaced storylines. Joke rhythm became faster, cleaner, tighter. This era didn't just produce hits. It produced icons. Sitcom quotes became everyday language. Theme songs became cultural memory. And reruns became a global habit. The 1990s wasn't the best sitcom era. It was the most beloved, yes. The single cam and mockumentary takeover. The 2000s didn't just tweak sitcoms. They detonated the formula. Laugh tracks were fading. Multicam felt old. The audience was craving honesty, not stage lighting. Then one show changed everything. The Office. It wasn't filmed like a sitcom. It wasn't written like a sitcom. It didn't even feel like scripted comedy. The mockumentary format made workplace awkwardness cinematic. Suddenly, the silence between jokes mattered more than the jokes themselves. Camera glances became punchlines. Imperfections became the point. Arrested Development followed with hyperspeed editing and layered jokes meant for rewatches, not live audiences. 30 Rock embraced absurdism with single-cam freedom. Parks and Recreation perfected the emotional documentary style. Multicam sitcoms didn't die, but they became the past. Single-cam was the new realism. Mockumentary was the new voice. This era made sitcoms more human, more uncomfortable, and more rewatchable than ever before. And for the first time, the camera became a character. The streaming sitcom identity crisis. Then streaming arrived, and sitcoms didn't know how to adapt. Netflix threw out the schedule. Binge watching became normal. The episode of the week format died overnight. Sitcoms suddenly had a choice: stick to the old rhythm or reinvent themselves completely. Most shows collapsed under the pressure, but a few cracked the code. New Girl used warmth and chemistry to survive the algorithm. Brooklyn Nine-Nine revived ensemble comedy with single-cam precision. The Middle and the Goldbergs returned to classic comfort with modern pacing. Streaming wasn't just a platform shift. It was an existential crisis. Writers no longer had a week to build anticipation. Episodes had to be fun enough to click next episode instantly. Sitcoms in this era became tighter, faster, and more plot-driven. Character growth accelerated. Season arcs mattered more than episodic chaos. It wasn't the death of sitcoms. It was the first major recalibration in 50 years. And the ones that survived became cult favorites. The prestige comedy era. Something unexpected happened next. Sitcoms became art. Shows like The Good Place, Barry, Atlanta, and Master of None blurred every line between comedy and drama. They weren't sitcoms. They were cinematic experiments that just happened to be funny. Network sitcoms asked, "What's the joke?" Prestige comedies asked, "What's the point?" Suddenly, comedy explored morality, The Good Place, trauma, BoJack Horseman, race, and surrealism, Atlanta, ethics and identity, Rami, grief, Fleabag, mental illness, crazy ex-girlfriend. This era did what no sitcom era dared to before. It treated laughter as a gateway to something deeper. Prestige comedy wasn't about escape. It wasn't about routine. It was about understanding people. And for the first time in sitcom history, critics took comedy as seriously as drama. Comedy wasn't the punchline anymore. It was the story. The comfort TV revival era. Then the world shut down. And sitcoms quietly took back their original purpose, comfort. During lockdown, people didn't want edgy satire or prestige introspection. They wanted warmth, familiarity, predictability. They wanted something that reminded them of a world that felt safe. Suddenly, the biggest shows on earth weren't new releases. They were Friends, The Office, How I Met Your Mother, and Brooklyn Nine-Nine reruns exploding on Netflix. Networks took the hint. Streaming platforms started commissioning shows that felt like emotional blankets. Ted Lasso, with its kindness-first philosophy. Superstore, capturing workplace humanity. Kim's Convenience, with soft community humor. Schitt's Creek, with its healing, joyful tone. The laugh track didn't return, but the heart did. Comedy stopped trying to be clever. It started trying to make people breathe. This era wasn't flashy. It wasn't groundbreaking, but it was necessary. Sitcoms went back to doing what they did in the 1950s, helping people survive tough times by giving them somewhere else to live for 30 minutes a night. The algorithm era. Then came the biggest creative shift since the invention of multicam. The algorithm started deciding what comedy should be. Streaming services realized sitcom success wasn't about jokes. It was about rewatchability, retention, and global relatability. Shows began to follow new rules silently created by viewer data. Rule 1, episodes must be binge-friendly. Shorter runtimes, faster pacing, no long cold opens, no slow-building arcs. Rule 2, characters must hit instantly. Audiences drop early if the dynamic isn't clear by episode 1. Rule 3, scenes must be memeable or TikTok clippable. Comedies now chase shareability as much as storytelling. Rule 4, global audiences matter more than America. Shows like Young Sheldon, Ghosts, and Abbott Elementary thrive because humor crosses borders. For the first time ever, sitcoms are engineered with real-time feedback. What viewers binge, skip, or rewatch directly shapes writing decisions. It's not art versus commerce anymore. It's art directed by data. Sitcoms didn't lose their soul, but they definitely changed their spine.